Come on, people, that was terrible. We could do better than that without dirty words. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
That sounds
It's recording now, Law, so it's fine, I'll cut that off. Yes, hello, good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see all of you again. Thank you, Law, for coming to join us, and I'm super excited. I think this is one of the talks this week that I'm most curious about. So yeah, I'm not going to do a lot of talking now. I'm just going to hand over to you so you can tell us who you are and what you're going to do with us. And yeah, over to Law.
Thank you. So hello, it's great to see you. My name's Law. You probably read the blurb, but I've been a senior teacher at the Actors Temple for a few years now, with Tom Sawyer. In fact, we teach together, and it's been a really great journey. I trained with my teacher Tom Radcliffe, and then started teaching at the very place that I trained in, because I sort of fell in love with the Meisner Technique. And the development of the Meisner Technique. And we kind of look at the Meisner Technique as a, well, you know, certainly Sanford Meisner, you probably all know, was very much of, it's an in the moment thing rather than we have to nail it down as a technique. So it's difficult because we say the Meisner Technique, but actually that's happened. That was a long time ago. And why I'm saying that is more because when it comes to analysis, it's very much an organic process. There is a structure, and we'll go through that, but it's very much an organic thing. And I think that it's really down to your feelings about it and what works for you. So I wanted to just sort of start out with saying that. I mean, I have to say, when I started analysis, it absolutely petrified me, and it was the last thing I wanted to do in the world. It reminded me of school, analysis school, words, you know, I couldn't. Oh, hi, Kate.
Hello. I'm late.
Sorry. Yeah, so it petrified me, and I didn't like doing it, and I didn't think I was very good at it. So basically, when that happens for me, I tend to go, right, well, I'm going to get good at this thing, whatever it takes. And I did, and actually I really enjoy it now. The title of this webinar is a Meisner basic guide, which I have attempted to make quite basic, although it can feel complex, but we'll go into that in a minute. But yeah, I just wanted to let everyone say something about, maybe if we can go around. I just thought, oh, this is more interactive as well, because I could just tell you how to do it, or these are what you do, but actually it's better to use something. So I've actually got a scene that we can use, so we can actually see how to put it into practice. And hopefully we won't go over the hour, but I've downloaded on the chat the scene, and also the basic guidelines and the structure of analysis that you can sort of download as well. I will share my screen with you when we do some of the analysis, so I can sort of point you to it. But yeah, I just wanted to go around, and basically the question is, how do you feel when you hear the word analysis, or when you're presented with having to do an analysis? And I'm talking about feeling rather than what you think, because what you think is like, but yeah, how you actually feel, what you bring to it when you hear that word or anything to do with looking at a script. So maybe if we start with if we go around my screen, it's probably easier. We'll start with Philip. Oh, I'll have to unmute you, won't I?
I'm all good. I'm free to speak.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So there's a question. That's a big question. I think for me, it's about having a process, and I'm always refining the process that I have in relation to text analysis. So I started out Stanislavski based over at the Central School of Speech and Drama decades ago, and then found myself in the same place you found yourself, Law, at the Actors Temple, working with Tom Radcliffe, and perhaps unsurprisingly that transformed everything that I thought about in relation to text analysis. So when it comes down to how I feel about it, at least I now have a very clear idea that although text analysis is a mental process, unless I'm getting a feeling from the analysis process that I'm doing, it's all redundant, it's pointless. I'm a very cerebral person, and it took me a long time to figure out something very simple, which was basically that even though I may have an English literature degree, it's of no use to me because it's a different kind of analysis when you're dealing with a play. You're looking for an emotional response, although admittedly, obviously going in with an analytical approach, because what else can you do?
Great, thank you. Georgie, how do you feel when you hear the word analysis?
It always used to make me feel quite nervous, that I didn't really know what I was doing a lot of the time, and I sort of was, like Philip said, was going more on feeling. But I think now tying it in with building like a character from that like initial analysis of what I make, it makes me feel a lot more comforted. If that makes any sense. So yeah. I'm not so scared of it.
Yeah, great, thank you. Kat?
So when I focus on how I feel when I hear that word, it's more a heady thing and very robotic and technical, and it can be useful and it can aid the emotional connection, but I don't have an aversion to analysis. I think it's very helpful, but it can be destructive if you do too much and you look at the words too much, and like Philip said, you kind of forget to connect that to your heart and your feelings. So it's helpful but not alone.
Yeah, thank you. Mary?
Like Philip, I've got a background in English literature, so I get quite excited by analysing a text that I've never read before. I'm really, I like the forensic investigation of it. So that's my excitement. But since I trained as an actor just a few years ago, so I trained in the Stanislavski approach to actioning and all of that. I find that too constraining. I just love to read the text as my character. So I love it when I've got the character and I read the text as my character and try and let whatever other characters may say land on me, if that makes sense. So yeah, so I really enjoy it, actually.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Mary. Tony?
I've got an English degree and a PGCE in English as well. So text analysis has always been my favourite Shakespeare. Because with Shakespeare especially, you have to know what the words mean in order to get the emotion. And I find that analysing texts, I relish it. I love analysing texts, and I like the way that if you analyse it in such a way, then the emotion is you make an emotional connection with that, because you've analysed the text. And I mean, I read the whole thing first of all without any kind of preconception, and then go back. And if I've got a part in it, then I'll read that character and see how the other people's reactions to me might affect me. So it's a kind of different, rather than a textual analysis, then it becomes an emotional analysis. But you need the two together, I think.
Great, thank you. Thanks. Linny?
Morning.
Morning.
So a good question and not an easy question to answer. I think I would agree with a lot of what Mary said, although I wasn't an English major. It's actually, I have a clinical background. So the behavior part of characters in a script is really fun to analyze. But the words are also intriguing as well. So I actually really like it, but I found I'm a really slow study. So if I read through a script a couple of times, I'll get a certain amount of insights, but then I don't really get and own the insights until I've done it, put it on its feet, and rehearsal a bunch of times. So it's kind of it's a long drawn out process. I don't dislike it at all. I like it, but I just find that I just keep finding more and more things. So it's very difficult for me to sit down, read a script and feel like, oh yeah, I've got it. And I need things to unfold in a more organic way, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think that's great. It's a good way to let it come in each time, isn't it? Yeah, thank you. Tanya, can you unmute yourself, Tanya? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Really help. The only analysis I did was when I did my English degree, and that was sort of like poetry and stuff, which I absolutely loved. I loved picking apart things. So, but I don't, to be honest with you, when it comes to doing and analysing a text, as in play, I haven't done it. So I don't know what it would involve, to be honest. But I'm sure I don't see why I wouldn't like it if I enjoy picking apart. But then, as Philip said, it's a different kettle of fish. So I not very helpful. Sorry.
Well, I guess I'm asking, how does the word analysis feel to you? Like, because you don't need to know what it is, isn't it? Because we all have there's a word analysis, and that feels to me quite like it's a big word somehow. It comes, for me, it comes loaded with lots of possibilities that bring with it some history.
Yeah, no, I find it exciting.
Yeah.
So I think that I would be excited by the prospect of picking something apart, I guess, getting right to the nub of it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yvonne.
Hi, well, I'm going to be totally honest, totally confusing when it says analysis. And I know it's just breaking down the text. I'm dyslexic, so I find it very hard to break down text. I've got to do it several times to get it into my head. So I'm saying analysis, if I can say the word for me, is pretty confusing, and I've got to take it very slowly and just build up.
Okay, great, thank you. Drew.
For me, analysis makes me feel a bit anxious in terms of just not quite knowing how to start it and what to do. Then when I actually get doing it, I enjoy it, finding out more about what's going on, and obviously be helpful for preparation, emotional preparation and things like that. But I often find, having done it all, then when it actually comes to it being in a scene, it sort of all goes out the window, and I wonder what the point was. So it's frustrating in that it's an essential part of it, but I can't seem to bring it out in the actual final thing.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Drew. Bernard.
I think it's quite an exciting word. There are lots of ways of approaching it that I'm aware of. Ultimately, it seems to me it's to the process by which I learn as well as I can what I'm saying and why I'm saying it when I'm on the stage or on set. And at its simplest, that's what it's for. It's where I meet the writer whose work I'm there to serve. So simple in principle. Not always simple to carry out, but I love it.
Great. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you. Alex.
I feel like analysis is necessary for us actors because what we understand by reading the text once it's usually not enough. There are many layers. We need to understand what's behind the words, the dynamic of the scenes, where the lines are coming from. So I think, of course, there are risks associated to it. If we overanalyze something that we might not be in the moment where we do the scene. So it's a matter of finding a balance, I think. But I do believe it's necessary, and it's incredibly useful. And like Phil said, it's an ongoing process. It's changing every time. It's not fixed, right?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kate.
Hi. Well, to be honest, I don't think I do analyze. I do it from the gut. So I literally just read the script. I'm already panicking that I've got to learn that script, which is and I'm going about it all the wrong way. But from just learning, knowing, and it just coming out each time, it seems to me I do it really more from the gut. I don't actually analyze the actual words until maybe later on in the process, very like Linny, discovering other characters and your own character working through that way. And as the relationships between the characters in the script, then that's where my analysis would come. I'm always trying to find a way of it being natural. So that's probably my initial analysis.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Okay. Leonie.
I think I'm a bit like Tanya. I get quite excited about taking things apart and really kind of sinking my teeth into it. I definitely know that back in school I always enjoyed sort of English classes where we would dissect text, and I think I've taken that with me when it comes to dissect text, that I'm going to be acting. Again, I'm not too keen on sort of actioning and things like that, much like I think it was Tony who said it, because it can feel quite restrictive. But yeah, the actual analysis and taking the text apart excites me.
Great, lovely.
So can I just say that, but having said that, then you're free. You have an idea, but you still are able to change depending on the other person, because it all depends on your interaction with the other people as well, who might have a different idea. So you're open to suggestion, which is another way of expanding your analysis. So it's not set in stone. Just because I do that, it's not set in stone. Do you see what I mean?
Okay. That's great. So there's lots of viewpoints and feelings about analysis. And I've asked that just because kind of what I hinted at is that we can bring all sorts of things to analysis, and those things generally tend to then block us from being able to kind of free flow around it. There's a couple of points which sort of came to my attention. Was this idea of character. Now, one of the things I put in the sort of bump for the webinar is that the basic premise for the Meisner Technique is that there is no such thing as character. Character are words on a page that somebody wrote, and they wrote it in that moment, and from then on it's kind of like, well, do with it what you will. I think there is the context of a writer writes something that we want to be in line with, tell the writer's story, but from an acting point of view, we as actors need to be able to find a way of playing these people that are portrayed. So rather than being able to play a character, which from a Meisner point of view is impossible, because we are not the character and we will never be the character. I will never be Lady Macbeth. It is an absolute impossibility. I was not born hundreds of years ago, nor am I married to Macbeth, nor, none of that has happened to me. I might look at her story and go, I can kind of think about how she might have felt, but that doesn't make me the character. Therefore, I have to find a way of doing this scene and acting this scene without pretending I'm something, so that it's actually real to me. And this is the basic premise of Meisner analysis, is taking a scene or a monologue and working through the analysis in order to get to a place where I can find something that I, Law, can actually do, where I don't have to pretend anything. And that's the kind of that's the basic premise. Now, sometimes that can be quite difficult because we all like the idea of playing characters and we talk about playing characters, but we kind of have to, I mean, you know, just in terms of this webinar, I sort of kind of feel like if we can just take that as a basic premise in order to understand the process that analysis is. And I think it was Drew who said it's hard when you've done the analysis and you have to throw it away. That's exactly what we have to do. We have to do the analysis and then we have to throw it away, and trust and have faith, actors' faith, that we've done enough, we've prepared enough. Part of the analysis gives us preparation and things to do. For instance, we need to know what we're coming to get from someone, what we want from somebody in the room. This being one of the most important things, because we always want to get something from someone, even if it's I want to go in and get a cup of tea, or I just want to go for a walk. There's still an element of wanting to get something from someone or somewhere, even if it's the most simplest of things. Yeah, so the want, for instance, being quite important. But I've got, I think it's probably quite a good, let's make sure I've, yeah. So let's go to the, let's go over to the document that I've shared with you, which is in the chat. So if you can go to the chat, and no, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to share it with you. Ignore that. I'm going to share my screen with you. Hang on a minute, I shall open this wide. Is there anyone who's got any visual problems? Just bring you back. Has anyone got any visual?
Can I just say, if you shared it with the chat before everybody was here, the people who arrived later won't see the in the
Really?
chat. I can't see it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to let you know. Okay.
So, okay. Thank you so much for that. Let me share that with you again now then, so that you've all got it. That's really good to know. I'm hoping we'll have time to do this. Otherwise I'll have to do it slightly different. Generally, when I do and when I teach an analysis class, let me just grab that file there. I would say, first of all, it takes about 45 minutes to do one side of the character. And then when you get better at it, it takes about 20 minutes. So practice makes perfect. Okay, so let me get share this document. So you've got the document I just shared with you, but let's go through it and I shall share my screen with you. I shall attempt to share my screen with you. Here we go. Let's see if it works. Desktop, share. Okay, can you all see that? See horn? Yeah, look, that's a deer smiling. Okay, so I mean, you'll all have this so that you can have it with you if if you choose this is something you're interested in, and so basically I'll go through the stages and the steps. So what happens with the text before the stage? These are the things that I would suggest, that I would do before I even get to starting to actually get to the stage. Now, before I even start a text analysis, in some ways, the first things I do would be to list the conversations had with regards to the character in the play or scene. Like, what are they? Well, yeah. So basically, yeah. Sorry, I had a thought that came in. So the first thing I would ask is, what are they literally doing? So these are the basic Meisner steps, 1 to 6. What are they literally doing? How do they feel at the very start of the scene? What does the character want from the other character? What is the essential action of the scene? And it is as if in my own life. So that's just to tell you what I'm about to tell you in a bit more detail. So before we'd start any of this, I would suggest that you make a list of what they say about themselves, what is said about them, and what do they do. Like, is there any actions that are in the stage direction that they that affects them? So for instance, if they had to hit someone in a scene, I would probably write that down. I wouldn't write down if they, you know, if a writer says, oh, but they huff and puff at that point. I would disregard that. And one of the things is I generally tend to, as a director, say disregard all the stage directions. And that's a basic Meisner premise as well, which doesn't always go down well with directors. But there you go. And then I said, never believe what another character says about character. It's like in life, people have opinions about everybody, and they'll give you their opinions, but it doesn't make it right. So it's bearing in mind that that's the same with plays. Never make assumptions about your character, as usually the first impressions are wrong. Banish preconceived ideas. So let go of all those things you might be making up already. I think we as actors are great storytellers, and as soon as we get a script, we start going, yes, they're like this, and they're like that, and they're like that. With Meisner technique, you actually have to stop yourself doing all of that. You might get an instinct, but it's letting go of all the stories so that you actually come at it from a very beginner's mind, like, okay, I know nothing about it. And which in a way makes it quite interesting, because you're always bringing something new to your scene. And I mean, if I was to go back and do the same part, for instance, in something, I would do it again. And even when I'm halfway through a play, I might still go back and redo it to bring something more fresh and alive to the scene. This is an exercise to inform you about how the character sees themselves and how they're seen by others. Yeah. Remember, character is an illusion created by the mind of the audience. That is pretty much a Meisner attitude, is that the illusion is in the mind of the audience. So what the audience is creating and filling in the gaps creates the illusion creates the character rather than the actor. We're just behaving, we're just doing stuff and saying stuff. Okay, so the literal doing, this is the first step of the Meisner analysis. What is the character literally doing? So when we say literally doing, that's what we mean. It's literally doing it, and it has to be very simple. It's kind of taking the whole scene and bringing it in one sentence, saying what's happening in one sentence without the use of and they did this, and they did that, oh, and they were doing that. Like, no, you have to have one. So I usually start by saying the character Mary is literally talking to her, could be husband, could be whoever it is to her, or you could just do the name. And how you do that is you read the character's lines and you make a list of what they talk about. So what would be great is if we do this, and behind here, voila, I have got a scene that I'd really love somebody to read. I'm hoping this is going to work, because I've never done this, by the way. So we're on a wing and a prayer with this. But I think that it might be quite good. It's a short scene. So who would like to, oh, no, I can't see you all. Who would like to, here we go. Who would like to, I just need two women to, well, it doesn't actually be women, actually, although the scene is with two women. Who would like to? So Yvonne and, who's that? hang on a minute, I haven't got your name on the screen because I'd have to reshare. Hang on a minute, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see who you are. Technology blip. Tanya. So Yvonne and Tanya, is that okay? That's who I saw first. There, share screen again. Okay, great. Yes, here we go. Right, and we go back to this one. Okay, brilliant. Can you see that, Yvonne and Tanya?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to unmute yourselves? Yeah. Okay. Is that big enough for you both?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll just scroll it down. And literally, what I want you other guys to be thinking about is what they talk about. Like, you know, you can list them. I mean, if we were doing a full-on Meisner analysis, I would say list what they talk about. Like, just, you know, they talk about the shopping, or they talk about their husbands, or they talk about their children, or they talk about their, you know, rather than listing they said this, it's they talk about like as a little topic. Do you understand what I mean? Yeah, cool. Okay, yeah, so yeah, go for it. So who wants to be Crystal, Yvonne or Tanya? Yvonne, yeah, go on, you be Crystal. Oh, and when you read this, sorry, just to let you know, just read it straightforward. Don't try and do anything, be anything. We're just listening. So as the rest of us, we're just listening to what you say. It's not about acting. It's just about saying the lines. You know, come in like that. Cool. Right. Go ahead.
Come in.
I am Mrs. Stephen Haynes.
I don't think I know you.
Please don't pretend.
So Stephen's finally told you?
No, I found out. I've always known about you from the beginning.
Well, that's news.
I kept still.
Well, that's very smart of you.
No, not smart. I wanted to spare Stephen. But you've gone a little too far. You've been seeing my children. I won't have you touching my children.
For God's sake, don't get hysterical. What do I care about your children? I'm sick of hearing about them.
You won't have to hear about them anymore. When Stephen realises how humiliating this has all been to me, he'll give you up instantly.
Say who? The dog in his manger?
That's all I have to say.
That's plenty.
Stephen would have grown tired of you anyway.
Speaking from your own experience. Well, he's not tired of me yet, Mrs. Haynes.
Stephen is just amusing himself with you.
And he's amusing himself plenty.
You're very hard.
I can't be soft on the right occasions. Oh, sorry, I can be soft on the right occasions. What do you expect me to do? Burst into tears and beg you to forgive me?
I found exactly what I expected.
That goes double.
You'll have to make other plans, Miss Allen.
Listen, I'm taking my marching orders from Stephen.
Stephen doesn't love you.
He's doing his best. He can in the circumstances.
He couldn't love a girl like you.
What do you think we've been doing for the past 6 months? Crosswords? Crossword puzzles? What do you think? What have you got to kick about? You've got everything that matters. The name, the position, the money.
Nothing matters to me but Stephen.
Oh, can the sob stuff, Mrs. Haynes. You don't think this is the first time Stephen's ever cheated? Listen, I'd break your smug little roost if I could. I've just as much right as you to sit in the tub of butter, but I don't stand a chance.
I'm glad you know it.
Well, don't think it's just because he's fond of you.
Fond?
You're not what's stopping him. You're just an old habit with him. He's just it's just that brats. It's just that those brats he's afraid of losing. If he weren't such a sentimental fool about those kids, he'd have walked out on you years ago.
That's not true.
Oh yes, it is. Oops, sorry. Oh yes, it is. I'm telling you, if in a few plain truths, you won't get from Stephen.
Stephen's always told me the truth.
Well, look at the record. Listen, Stephen's satisfied with this arrangement, so don't force the issue unless you want plenty of trouble.
You've made it impossible for me to do anything else.
Have I?
You haven't played fair.
Where would any of us get if we played fair?
Where do you hope to get?
Sorry?
Right where you are, Mrs. Haynes.
You're very confident.
The longer you stay here, the more confident I get. Saint or no saint, Mrs. Haynes, you are a hell of a dull woman.
By your standards, I probably am. Why am I standing here talking to you? This is something for Stephen and me to settle.
Oh, what the hell?
Great. Okay.
Sorry about the glitches.
No, it's really fine. So, you know, fairly short scene. Seems quite straightforward. So what if we take one side? So if we take, for instance, Crystal, what would we say that she is literally doing? If we were to take any interpretation out of it, what could we say that she was? You can, if you've got an answer, you could unmute yourself. What could we say she's literally doing? So she's talking to who? Crystal is Yvonne. Yvonne was reading for Crystal. So she's literally talking to who? Who is Crystal talking to?
Her lover's wife.
Her lover's
wife. That's what one assumes, Mrs. Haynes. And Stephen is her husband, and Crystal's having an affair with him.
Yes. So Crystal is literally talking to her husband's
no, to her lover's wife.
So if, oh yeah, so Crystal, yeah, right. That's the, sorry, I was the other one. Yes, yes, exactly. So it's that. So that in its basic form would be what she's doing. Now, we could say that about any scene, couldn't we? We could say, well, they're always talking to somebody. So that's why we look at the list that we've written down and see whether we can add more flavour to that, or more of an accurate view in a way, rather than an interpretation of what it is. So we know she is literally talking to, and that actually is true. She's literally talking to her lover's wife. So if we look at all the other things that we've got, if you can say some things they talked about, just kind of, did anyone make a list? Did anyone make a list of things? Yeah, say
talking about the children.
Yeah. Who else? What else does she talk about?
Her opinion is that her husband doesn't love her, and he prefers to be with her. So she's made that assumption.
So that's an opinion. So if we literally,
right.
could you take that down to the truth, the essence of what it is that she says, rather than an opinion about what she's saying? What
she's saying that Stephen doesn't love his wife.
Yes, and that's also her opinion, isn't it? But what is she literally talking about? If we were to strip it right down, rather than saying, oh, that's what she's saying, it's like, what does she actually talk about? It's a bit like going to the shops and looking for some vegetables. I'm going to the shop to buy some apples, pears, and bananas. And that's what I'm literally doing, as opposed to I'm going to the shop to buy some food that might affect my tummy. Like, that's my opinion about the fruit, as opposed to what I'm literally doing, which is actually going to buy those things. I don't know if that's a very good example, but that's what popped into my head. So she literally is talking about her children. She's talking about Stephen.
Yeah.
What else? What else does she mention?
Love.
Wanting to be wanting to be in the position that she's in.
Okay, so how could you write that? Because that sounds quite interpretive to me. Is she literally talking about? So let's go through and say let's look at what Crystal actually says.
she's talking about her ambition, which is she wants to be Mrs. Haynes. Is that an opinion? That she's talking, when she says right where you are, Mrs. Haynes, she's talking about her ambition and what she wants to achieve.
But is that all she talks about? Because the first line she says is come in. So talking about her ambition doesn't include come in. So let's go what she says.
About
Sorry,
her
I don't.
relationship with Stephen.
Yes, she is. What else is she? Is that the only thing she talks about? Is there more? Is there more things that she talks about? So Stephen finally told you. So she's talking about the fact that Stephen's spoken to his wife. So the truth is out. So she talks about that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's news. Well, that's very smart of you. She talks about how smart about Mary is. She's talking about Mary's state. Don't get hysterical. She's saying, Mary, don't care about your children. What do I know? Sorry, what do I care about your children? Talk about her feelings about the kids. She's sick of hearing about them.
Mm-hmm.
Says who? The dog in the manger. So what's that? Says who? Some idea of Mary's. Crystal, that's plenty. So she's talking about Mary's, what Mary has said. Speaking from your own experience, well, he's not tired of me yet, Mrs. Haynes. So she's talking about her relationship to Stephen. He's amusing himself plenty. I can be soft on the right occasions. What do you expect me to do? Burst into tears and beg you to forgive me. So what's that? She's talking about, what do you expect me to do? Burst into tears. What does Mary think that she should do about this situation and her state? That goes double. Listen, I'm taking my marching orders from Stephen. So she's talking about her relationship to Stephen and how he is with her. He's doing the best he can in the circumstances. What do you think we've been doing for the past 6 months? Crossword puzzles. What have you got to kick about? You've got everything that matters. The name, the position, the money. Oh, can the sob stop, Mrs. Haynes? You don't think this is the first time Stephen's ever cheated? Lytton, I'd break up your smug little roost if I could. I've just as much right as you to sit in a tub of butter, but I don't stand a chance. Well, don't think it's just because he's fond of you. So basically what I'm pointing to is the fact that she's talking about a lot of things, and it's about going through it and seeing if you can get to the actual just the very simple things, rather than saying, because when I look at it, I go, she's talking about her affair with Stephen, but actually she's doing a lot more than talking about her affair with Stephen. She's talking about, all those things I've listed and more. And basically it's about writing those down and coming to a cohesive phrase that gets at the actual truth of this, rather than the interpretation, rather than our interpretation. Do you see what I mean? Because we can say she's talking about their relationship, and yes, she is, but she's talking about much more. And we need to come to a sort of joint conclusion about the very sort of nub, is that a word? Nub, let's use it. Nub of what she's saying. And by listing all the things she actually talks about, and by actually reading the lines, you can start to unglue the interpretations and unglue the ideas that we have about it, and actually go, well, she actually is talking about so the longer you stay in here, the more confident I get. Saint or no saint, Mrs. Haynes, you are the hell of a dull woman. So she's talking about her viewpoint of Mary as a dull woman. doesn't make Mary a dull woman, but that's her viewpoint of Mary. So that's one of the things she's doing. She is talking about that. So it's one of the things that she's talking about. So it's about trying to get it all into one sentence. So I'm just going to hop back over to this one here. So just read the characters' lines. So we read Crystal's. Make a list of what they talk about as a way of seeing clearly the topics they speak about, so that you can take away interpretation. So for the sake of time, I'll tell you what I got. So I would say Crystal is literally responding to Mary about the effect of the affair on their lives. So that would be one literal doing that I would come up with. Now, as I say, we're all going to potentially come up with different versions, but it's trying to get at the simplistic view of the literal doing so that we can peel away all the interpretation to just get it very, very simply. And that's partly so that we can, as a way of getting inside our the character that we're reading, so that we're not playing it just from our idea. We're actually going, this is it in its basic line. Because then we can start from the beginning. Then we can start with taking away any ideas that we might have. Because in the beginning of analysis, if you've got too many ideas, it gets in the way and you suddenly start nailing it, and all your intuition isn't quite so free flowing because you've got too many ideas rolling around. And in a way, if you can come at it with a beginner's mind, let's see what it is. I know nothing about this. Tell me, Tex, if I use these questions. Okay. And if I was in a class with you, we would probably spend a lot more time on this, and we would probably chew the fat for a little bit further on this, but I'm going to whoosh on to the next one, which is looking at how the character feels at the very first moment of the scene. And so how does the character feel? And when I say the first moment, it has to be the moment just before you come on stage. Because what quite often happens is actors, including myself, can read a scene and go, oh, they're really sad. And then they play sad because they're sad in the scene. But the reality is, in life, we don't often come into a scene or come into life knowing how we feel. It just happens, doesn't it? We just come on, and things happen with people or relationships that we're in, and we have these conversations, and suddenly we start feeling something. Now, obviously, as an actor, we need to know what's going on in the scene, but we also want to allow some free flowing for some spontaneity, so that emotions can happen. But when we look at a scene, we can start to look at, well, what's happened to them, because we're always coming from somewhere, aren't we? Something's always happened before.
Law?
Yeah.
So it's going to be different for each character, isn't it? Because for Mary, she knows where she's going and who she's about to talk to. Whereas for Crystal...
But she doesn't know what's happened, and what we need to... she doesn't know how it's going to go.
No, but would you say that she'd have some kind of... She'd be nervous because she's going to go and talk to Crystal?
Well, she might be nervous.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It could be she could be feeling very angry and... Okay.
She could be, yeah, exactly. She could be anything. And the reality is, she might have just fallen over in the street, got absolutely bruised, hurt herself, and show up crying, or she might have just been to the bank, and, I mean, we can make those stuff up, but actually, if we had a play, we'd read the play, then we knew what happened before, so we had an idea of that. So then we can go, okay, and then we decide, well, where is she? What's happened here? So there's lots of choices. We can't make random choices, because otherwise that's incongruent, isn't in line with the play. But we can deduce from the scene how she might be feeling at the beginning. And we do this just again so that we're not interpreting or working out too far ahead what's going to happen, because we need to base it on the moment before we come in, because otherwise we've already written the scene. We're in our heads when we come in, because we already know what's going to happen, because we know it, because we're the actor, because we learn the lines. Therefore, we end up running the scene as we have in our minds, but not actually being able to walk in from an open place. So if, you know, however, we also know that it's probably high stakes here, isn't it? This is that, you know, these two women have come together to have it out, you know, and they're both in quite desperate situations. So the stakes for both of them are very high. You know, Mary has been in this marriage for a very long time, and Crystal wants her man. You know, she's got a good thing here going, and so they've come to fight it out. So the stakes emotionally are quite high. So there's some questions here that I've written. What is happening the moment the scenes start, not the moments during? How we feel now is not necessarily how we felt in the past. So we've just sort of talked about that, haven't we? You know, it's like she might have spoken to Stephen, she might have, you know, things might have changed as well. So I think we have to look at all those things before we start coming into the scene, and ask, why am I talking about this right now? You know, why is Mary talking about it right now, and why is Crystal talking about this right now? What's happened to bring them to this moment? How do they feel right now? I would tend to go for one first of all, which is angry, sad, or happy. But you can decide on all those three and so you've got lots of choices. Because in life, again, you know, if we're going to come in for a showdown, there's no telling how I might be. I might feel that I want to be angry, but actually get there and I'm very, very upset. And it's still about, well, what happened in the play before as well? Has Crystal just come from Stephen and he said, I want to go back to my wife? Or has Mary just had an argument with Stephen where he says he's leaving her and she's all bravado? You know, it could be anything. And it's still about getting what you can from the text, but starting to look at how she might feel. And again, it's about allowing yourself to broaden your choices so that you as an actor have got choices. And then we come on to, I'm skimming through this just because I want you to have an understanding, and I know it's not a lesson, but
Laura, I don't know, just time-wise, whether, I mean, we can either just carry on for a bit if people are fine with that, or maybe we can do a part 2 at some point if you feel
right.
Maybe you're trying to cram too much into an hour. It's up to you. What do you reckon?
Possibly am. How are people feeling? I imagine another 15 minutes would be needed. Is there anyone who can't do that or doesn't want to do that and would like to go? Okay. You have to go. Okay. That's one. How about anyone else?
Yeah, it looks like the majority is all right to stay, and Kate can catch up on it in the recording.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. There is a lot to cover, and I sort of it's a new thing, so I'm really pleased you want to stay. And maybe it is possible to do a second one as well, but let's see how we go. It would be good for you to just get the basics. So the next thing is, what do you want? What does the character want from the other character? So not what do you want, but what does the character want from the other character? What are they coming to get from here? And I've made a list here, so that it's a sort of framework of the things that you might want, as a sort of rule of thumb for what it's good to come and get from someone. So it has to be physically capable of doing it. You have to be able to get it. It has to be fun to do, meaning, because we all come in to do things we want to do. Be specific, so it's not I want to come in to get a hug. You know, you might get it on the very first moment, so that's not a great thing to come to get from someone. Not an errand, because an errand will take you out of the room. Not presuppose any physical emotional state. So if I think, oh, Mary Haynes, I want Mary to be angry at me, and actually you walk in the door and of course Mary is angry with you, so you've already got the thing that you wanted. So it's not a good want. It's not something you can actually get from the other person. Not be manipulative, because that just confuses things, and our minds get very confused about manipulation. You will know when you've got it, so you'll know how you feel when you've got it, and be in line with the playwright's intention, so that makes sense. So is this making sense to something that you want? These are just guidelines to wants. Wants as in or I mean, I put or action, the thing that you're coming to get. So, and a way to tell whether you've got the want is to imagine, well, what will happen if I get it? What if I don't get it? How will I feel? And if I'm not very, and if I'm not upset about that, then that might not be a very good want, because we tend to want the things we really want are the things that work, especially as actors. If we have something that we feel a bit about, it's not going to work because we've got no reason to come onto the stage. To feel charged and compelled to come and get the thing that we want. So you will now have explored the character's world and emotionalize yourself to a certain extent. So you're starting to sort of get into what's going on with the character. And the next stage is called the essential action. The essential action is basically getting at the essence of the scene, getting at the essence of what's going on. And this is where I think Meisner changes the analysis that might be compared with other analysis. This is where you come away from the actual text. You come away in order to find a way of doing it as an actor rather than a character. So having deduced from the text what the character is literally doing and what the character wants, we put these two together to get a simple action or essential action. The essential action is what the actor can actively attempt to get from the other actor in the scene. The action is what links the character to the action on the stage, to the actor on the stage, sorry. So I'll read that again. The action is what links the character to the actor on the stage. An essential action is not what I'm doing, but what I'm getting someone else to do. So this is when we can start to work on you, not the character. So, for instance, with the scene that we were looking at, you could say that Mary is coming to Crystal is coming to get Mary to wake up and smell the coffee. So wake up and smell the coffee could be an essential action. Another one I've got for her is open the door and set yourself free. So, or jump off the sinking ship and sail to greener pastures. So the essential action is something that's a little bit more poetical, or it's a little bit more sort of storytelling or allegorical. So you get at the essence in a more metaphorical way. And that's in order to actually get at what's underneath all of that action. So getting at the essence of it. So that if, for instance, I was playing Crystal, I would be coming to Mary to get her to wake up and smell the coffee. So wake up and smell the coffee is, I want to shake you out of what you're in because I'm going to come and get your husband. Does that make sense? In that action, and we're using that wake up and smell the coffee, for instance, as a way of describing, but it pulls us away from the scene, and it pulls us away from the scene so that then we can move on to the last phase, which is the as if. And the as if, the as if is what enables us, the actor, to be able to play something. So so if I look at the phrase getting someone to wake up and smell the coffee, I go, well, who in my life could I get to wake up and smell some coffee? So I then start to think of people in my life who I care about, which we call a truthful route. And I start to look at, well, in my imagination, who can I choose that I feel I might be able to put myself in a situation with where I need to get them to see something differently, or make a different choice, or to shake them out of their stupor. So who could I get to wake up and smell a coffee in my life? And I would think of a situation, and it has to be somebody you care about, because if you don't care about them, then you're probably not going to want to do it, and it's not very compelling. It's not compelling to watch, but it also isn't compelling for me to do either, because it's not interesting if I don't want to do it. So I then start to think of people in my life, and it might be, for instance, if I had a very good friend who was quite a heavy drinker and I felt it was ruining their life, I would have a conversation with them to try and get them to stop drinking. Now, it might be that if I wanted to raise the stakes to be in line with the scene, that I imagine her, maybe she's getting ill, or maybe it's affecting her life so much that I think it's going to affect her health or her mortality. And then I would have a conversation with her, or I would lay it down on the line to her about how I felt. Now, I have got a friend who I care about, and who I also could quite easily imagine slipping down that slope, and who I would want to have that conversation, or could have that conversation in my head. Now, we have to be careful, because we can't use either somebody who's dead. We also can't use somebody who's already in that situation. So if I had a friend who was an alcoholic who was about to die, I wouldn't use that person, because that would be real life. And we call that an unhealthy route, because we're using something that's already happened. And also, to use an unhealthy route, you've got nowhere else to go because it's already happened. So I'd choose somebody that I cared about, but this hadn't happened to, but I can imagine happening to. So then I'd be getting her to wake up to smell the coffee. So then I've got something that I can do on stage, and that I can come and do as an actor, not as the character, that creates the illusion to the audience that I'm the character, because I've got the character's lines. Now, so that is basically, in a very, very rushed, quick way in the end, well, she's not that rushed, but that's basically, in essence, the process of analysis, Meisner analysis. Is there any questions that anyone wants to ask? Okay, let me stop sharing for a second. Yeah, let's go back. Yeah, Yvonne.
Yeah, do you know, you said the essential action. Does that change throughout the text? Or can it change throughout the text?
The essential action you would get for each scene.
Oh,
you can also get an essential action for a whole play. So you would do, if you were doing a play, you would use this analysis for the whole play, and you'd get one essential action, one as if in my life. So you're doing one thing throughout the play. I would also do every scene, and I would say, in a way, it's more important to do every scene, but you also want to know what your trajectory is and what your kind of super objective is, which is why you do it for the whole play as well. And like I said, once you get better at this, it doesn't take as long, and there's so many layers. Also, again, I'll just remind you that there's many options, and an essential action, you can get loads of essential actions that might be in line with any part of the play and be in line with any scene. That might, you might get a different one that sort of fits in one time you do it, and the next time you go, that doesn't fit, I need to go back and just recheck it and go over again. And again, it's just, in my mind, it means that it opens up all the options of how to do the scene and how to do it differently each time. So it's never one thing. It's only always to go, and I need to be in line with the writer. without interpreting and without trying to play or pretend that I'm not me. Yeah, anyone else got any questions? Yes, Bernard.
It's perhaps a bit too much in the head, but I'm a bit bothered. You started out by saying, which I've heard before, there is no such thing as character, and yet almost no sentence for the first 2 pages, at any rate, of the text analysis suggestion doesn't contain the word character, and I don't quite understand that. If there is no such thing as character, why do we keep talking about the character?
Okay, well, when I say no such thing as character, what I mean is we tend to see character as somebody else. Well, we tend to see, no, sorry, we tend to think that we can play a character and then we end up pretending to be that character. Now, the way that we work with Meisner is that we say, well, we can't be a character. So although I'm saying character doesn't exist, what I mean is we can't actually be that. So like I said, I can't be Lady Macbeth because I'm not Lady Macbeth. So I can find out all I can about Lady Macbeth, but I can't actually be the character Lady Macbeth. So I can't be a character. I can find a way of doing it that creates the illusion of Lady Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, the character on the page. But as an actor, if I don't want to pretend, because there are actors, they want to pretend that they can be a character. That isn't how I work, you know, and that's sort of my understanding is that actually it's impossible to be somebody else. I can only ever be me. I can be me doing things, and I can be me using tools, or I can be me by putting costume on and creating the illusion, but I can never be a character. So that's what I mean by that. Anyone else? Yeah, thanks, Bernard. Yeah, Alex. I can't hear you, Alex, actually. What's going on? You are unmuted, which is interesting. Have you got anything switched off? We did hear you at the beginning, didn't we? It's interesting. Do you want to chat it, or is that too annoying? This is where we should all have learned sign language in our youth. We'd be able to just do it. Okay, okay. You can always write it if you want to. Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. Anyone else? Yeah, Philip. You need to unmute.
There you go. Laura, you were talking about the as if and finding someone who you could relate to, somebody that you know and somebody that you care about. If we're taking this scene as an example, you know, you have 2 characters who clearly don't like each other very much. So when you say that we should be looking for somebody that we care about, can it actually be somebody we care about in the sense, not that we really, really like them, but also that we really, really don't like them at all, and use that person in our as if?
You could do, but you'd have to still want to do it.
Right.
And there's also an assumption there that she doesn't care about her. Whereas if we actually look at life, if she's been going out with Stephen for a long time, she knows about, you know, she spent time with the kids. She may, yeah, I think what I'm saying is we can't assume that she doesn't care about her. She might not care about her. That's a possibility. Some people don't. And then a whole lot of other people might do. She just might want Stephen. And therefore, you know, it's like a love and hate. I may say I hate someone, but underneath it, I might love them. Or, you know, it might be that actually she's got a genuine care for her. It might be that she may not love her, but she might have a genuine respect for her. We don't know. So it's, in a way, I think we have to not make any assumptions about that, and there's a first premise. But in terms of the choices of choosing somebody you don't like, I think the difficulty with that, although it's not so in line with the scene, is that we quite often don't want to go and do stuff with people we don't like. So we have to find someone we do want to do it with. So a truthful Ruth, it might be somebody that we've got a difficult relationship with, but we do care about. That would probably work better than somebody we don't like, because I find if I've got to go and talk to somebody that I don't like, I don't want to do it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Doesn't give you anywhere to go.
Yeah, that would be my choice. However, you could choose that and play around with it. There wouldn't be anything wrong with that. It would just be, you've got to, it's where you've got to be honest with yourself about what you really want to do. Do I really want to go and talk to that person? And even though I feel anxious, or, I've got to go and talk to my bank manager about, getting a loan. I mean, because I'm in deep debt, actually that's going to make me feel highly anxious, but I've got to do it.
Right.
So I may not like my bank very much, but the reason for doing it is actually,
Yes, that makes sense. So even if the context of the scene or even the play, after you've analysed it, after you've had a look at it, and then you decide that, well, these are clearly two characters who hate each other passionately, if that's the conclusion you have to come to about the characters on the page, even then you might find yourself doing an as if, which oddly enough perhaps works with somebody that in fact you like very much, but you clearly want something from them because of the fact you like them so much.
Because and it's all about creating the illusion, you see. So it's what it looks like, and what emotionalizes you, what gives you drive. So in a way, if it creates the illusion, because then you might do that, and as a director I might go, no, you like her way too much, you've got to find something else. Or you imagine that she's done something to you that you can't forgive.
Yes, of course.
So then you add in those points of view that then change what it is you're doing. So then you start playing around, and then again you get more freedom, don't you?
Because it's a whole lot worse to have somebody who you really like betray you and do something unexpected than it is to an enemy who is going to be horrible to you anyway.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you. That's very useful. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Anyone else before we finish? Yes, Tanya.
So with all this, can I call it playing around?
Sure.
At what point do you ever get to a point, because it sounds like you could go around and around and around and around, depending on, there are so many variables by the sound of it.
Yeah.
What point do you get to the point where you go, either this feels right or this, feels right, I guess, or I am now portraying the character, if I can say that, as it, I hate the word should, so I won't say it, but as the writer wants it, the director wants it, etc. Can you get to that point?
Well, I think that you would probably find that out after doing a few months of a run, because the point of this analysis is it's live. It's a live analysis. So although you might start off on your opening night with one version, and you'll let it go, and you'll come on and you'll see how it works, and then you'll go, that was interesting, and then you'll try it again the next night and you go, well, that was different, and you might go, actually I want it to be different, actually, that I'd like to play with this. So rather than it's a finished product, the beauty of this is that there's no finished product. You just keep playing.
Evolves, basically.
And and you might go back and go, I need to read the play again, and actually I feel like I've come off a bit of the playwright's intent, that didn't quite work, and I want to get in line again. And then you'll go back to the scene, or you might read the play again, or you might have a discussion. But it's a very live analysis, really, and that's the way I feel it should be, because then we're always keeping our performances fresh, and then we're always coming on with new points of view, and then we're working off of our partner with something different. So there's nothing new, there's nothing that happens the same. And that's very much Meisner principle, which is it's in the moment, and if it's in the moment, it's live. We don't know what's going to happen, therefore anything that happens to me is new, and I just follow it.
Yeah, and it will, in theory, translate to the audience as being a lot more real.
Yes, yeah, yeah, and something that is relatable.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. Okay, so I think that we're probably going to have to wrap up now, aren't we? Yeah, deep apologies for going over time. I hope it's been useful.
That's okay. There was another question from Alex that he typed into the chat.
Oh, great.
About steaks.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yes, we can.
Sorry, I think it's a problem with my Mac. So yeah, I was thinking about what you said earlier on about getting someone to wake up and smell the coffee. Is it not, why do we have to do, it's not very clear to me, why do we have to move away from the scene? Is it not, it seems to me like using this action, the stakes wouldn't be that important for me while I'm playing the scene.
But if it's not important to you, then you need to find something that is important to you, that is as higher stakes in your life. So then it mirrors the scene in the same way. And the essential action is really so that we don't end up just playing the scene. So if we have an essential action, it brings us away from the scene, so we're free to use our lives. Otherwise, I'm going to make it look like the scene each time. If I don't have something that takes me away from the scene that has the same flavour as the scene, I'm going to just keep replaying the scene and do it exactly the same way each time. And then I'm not bringing freshness to it. But
so you're basically saying to to attach a personal meaning to that action.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily related to that scene.
Well,
something that's important for us as actors.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it has to be in line with the writer of the scene. So because if it's too random, then it's not going to fit. You know, to get someone to wake up and smell the coffee. If my as if was I wanted to get someone to sell something for me. That's a terrible example, but that wouldn't be in line with that. With that action, wake up and smell the coffee, ask someone to sell something for me. One, it wouldn't have the stakes, but it wouldn't be in line. So the important thing is about finding something in your life or under the imagination to actually reach those stakes. So that's what has to be important. What has to be in line is the importance to you. So you raise the stakes in your own life, which you do with your imagination. Something you really care about. You know, if I felt that my friend, you know, if she was going to die if she takes another drink, which is highly possible with alcoholics sometimes, if they're if they're addicted physically, that next one could actually be the death. So therefore I've got to talk to her from my heart about what I feel she should do, and that would be high stakes, wouldn't it? And that would then translate to an audience as that important. Yeah, great. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you very much.
This has been great. I mean, if you feel like you want to do a part 2 at some point, I'm sure there will be takers. So maybe let's have a chat about that.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And I'm sure I'm going to see loads of you in about 40 minutes for the accent class with Nick Redford.
Yeah. Oh, no. But yeah, great. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Leonie, for asking to come.
Thank you
Take
so
care,
much.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.